I'm Hannah, 32, female, and 3 days before my brother's wedding, I discovered he and his fiancée had charged $14,550 to my account without my permission. I'm a software engineer, a planner, a person who finds comfort in logic and order. My world is one of code and consequences, where every action has a predictable reaction. But the logic of my family has always operated on a different system, one I've never managed to crack. It's a system where I am the designated safety net, the emergency fund, the ever-reliable source of stability for my younger brother, Leo. For as long as I can remember, our family has orbited two sons, my parents and their golden child, Leo. He is my parents' masterpiece, the charming, artistic soul who could do no wrong. I was the responsible one, the practical one, the one who was praised for being mature, which I later learned was just code for being self-sufficient and not needing anything. The disparity in our upbringing wasn't subtle, it was a loud, clear broadcast that shaped our entire lives. The first time I truly felt the sting of this dynamic was when I turned 16. I spent an entire summer working at a local diner, the scent of grease and coffee clinging to me long after my shifts ended. I saved every dollar, dreaming of the freedom a car would bring. My prize was a 10-year-old sedan that rattled when it went over 60, but it was mine. I bought it with my own money, and the pride I felt was immense. A year later, when Leo turned 16, there was no talk of summer jobs or savings accounts. On his birthday morning, a brand new cherry red convertible sat in the driveway, a giant bow on its hood. My parents beamed, their faces glowing with pride. He has such a vibrant spirit, a car like this just suits him, my mother had said, squeezing his shoulder. A week later, my father sat me down. Hannah, he'd said, his tone gentle but firm, the insurance on Leo's car is quite steep. It would be a huge help if you could cover it for him just for the first year to help him get on his feet. I remember looking at my own rattling sedan, for which I paid my own insurance, and feeling a deep, hollow sense of injustice. But I was 17, conditioned to please, so I agreed. It was just to help him get on his feet after all. The pattern continued into our college years. I knew my parents' savings were modest, so I worked tirelessly to secure academic scholarships. I balanced a full course load with two part-time jobs, living on instant noodles and library coffee. I graduated with honors and a job offer, but also with a quiet exhaustion that settled deep in my bones. Leo, on the other hand, chose to attend a prestigious and incredibly expensive private art school. There was no discussion of how it would be paid for. My parents simply made it happen. They took out loans, drained their savings, and when things got tight during his second year, the call came to me. Leo is struggling to pay for his art supplies and rent, my mom had explained, her voice thick with worry. We don't want him to have to get a job and lose focus on his art. Could you just send him a little something each month? You're doing so well, Hannah. It wasn't a question, it was an expectation. So I did. I sent my brother money every month, money that I was trying to save for a down payment on my own small condo so that he could focus on his art. I never saw a single painting. When Leo announced his engagement to Chloe, I was genuinely happy for him. Chloe was a social media manager, bubbly and stylish, and she seemed to make my brother happy. They were a perfect match, both possessing a shared belief that the world owed them something beautiful. When they started planning their wedding, I knew the topic of money would come up. I decided to be proactive. I took them both out to a nice dinner, and after congratulating them again, I made my offer. I know weddings are expensive, I said, sliding an envelope across the table. I'd like to help, this is for you. Inside the card was a check for $5,000. It was a significant amount, more than I'd ever given anyone, and I was proud to be able to do it. Leo opened it, glanced at the check, and gave me a thin smile. Wow, thanks, Hannah, he said, the enthusiasm in his voice feeling forced. Chloe peered over his shoulder, and her smile was even thinner. That's so sweet of you, she said, before immediately launching into a description of the caterer they wanted, the one who did fusion cuisine and had a 6-month waiting list. The cost she mentioned was nearly triple my gift. The message was clear. My gift was pocket change, a nice gesture, but not a real contribution. A few weeks later, Leo called me. Hey, Han, he said, his voice casual. So we found a band we love, but we have to put down the deposit by tomorrow or we'll lose them. It's only $500. Chloe and I are a little tight this week. Could we possibly put it on your card and we'll pay you ba? I'll see Kay next Friday. This felt familiar, this landscape of just until next Friday. but it was for his wedding and it was a specific, manageable amount. Okay, Leo, I sighed, pulling out my wallet. I'll give you the number, but listen to me. This is only for the band deposit, for $500. Do not use it for anything else, do you understand? Yeah, yeah, of course, he said quickly. You're a lifesaver, Hannah. Seriously, just for the band, I promise. I gave him the numbers, repeating the warning. I trusted him. Despite everything, despite the years of evidence to the contrary, he was my brother. I thought a promise about his own wedding would be one he would keep. I thought that this time it would be different. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before the wedding. I was working from home, deep in a line of code, when my phone buzzed on the desk beside me. It was an email notification from my credit card company with the subject line, Large Transaction Alert. I frowned. I hadn't bought anything expensive. I opened the email, my eyes scanning the text. A charge of $14,550 from Premier Event Rentals has been approved. I stared at the number, my mind refusing to process it. $14,550. It had to be a mistake, a system glitch, maybe fraud from a stranger who'd stolen my information. That was the only logical explanation. I immediately logged into my online banking portal, my heart starting to beat a little faster. The charge was there, stark and real, sitting at the top of my recent transactions. Next to it were two other charges I hadn't made, one for $8,200 from Artisan Catering and another for $1,300 from Blooms and Bouquets. My stomach dropped. I did the math, my fingers fumbling on my keyboard. The band deposit wasn't even there. The total was over $24,000. My savings, the money I had so carefully cultivated for a future I was building for myself, had been decimated in a single afternoon. My first call was to the credit card company's fraud department. I tried to keep my voice steady, explaining that I suspected my card had been compromised. The agent was calm and professional. She confirmed the charges and asked me to hold while she looked into the vendor details. Ma'am, she said, her voice turning clinical, the name on the rental agreement for Premier Event Rentals is Leo Miller. Is that a familiar name? The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Yes, I whispered, that's my brother. And the delivery address is for the Oak Creek outdoor venue this coming Saturday. Yes, I said, my voice barely audible, that's for his wedding. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Ma'am, the agent said, her tone softening with pity, it appears these charges were made by your brother for his wedding. Since he had your card number and security code, it's not technically considered fraud from our perspective. It's a family matter. A family matter, the words echoed in my ears. I ended the call, a cold dread washing over me. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a stranger, it was my own brother. I immediately tried calling him. The call went straight to voicemail. I called again, voicemail. I sent a text, my thumbs shaking. Leo, we need to talk right now, call me. Minutes stretched into an hour. Nothing. Finally, a text message popped up on my screen. It was from him. Hey, super busy with last-minute wedding stuff, what's up? What's up? The casual indifference of his message felt like a slap in the face. I typed a reply, my anger making my fingers sharp and precise. You charged over $24,000 to my credit card, Leo, that's what's up. The three little dots indicating he was typing appeared, then disappeared, then they appeared again. Finally, a message came through. Oh, that? Yeah, we had to finalize the vendors. Don't worry, it's for the wedding, it's fine. It's fine. He had emptied my accounts, broken my trust, and his response was, it's fine. The cold dread inside me began to curdle into a hard, cold anger. I grabbed my keys and walked out of my apartment, not even bothering to shut down my computer. I drove the 20 minutes to the apartment he shared with Chloe, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I knocked on their door, I could hear laughter from inside. Chloe opened it, a glass of champagne in her hand. Her face fell slightly when she saw me. Hannah, hi, she said, her voice overly bright. We were just celebrating, finalizing all the details, you know. Leo appeared behind her, a matching glass in his hand. He looked at me, his expression not one of guilt, but of mild annoyance. Hey, what are you doing here? I said I was busy. I'm here to talk about the $24,000 you put on my credit card, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Leo sighed, rolling his eyes as if I were a child throwing a tantrum over a broken toy. Look, Hannah, the deposits were due. We didn't have the liquid cash. You did. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal, I could fee. My controls slipping. You spent my money, Leo. Money I worked for. We had an agreement. You had a limit. You promised. He took a step forward, his face hardening. And then he said the words that would change everything, the words that sliced through years of buried resentment and laid the truth bare. Honestly, Hannah, why are you acting so surprised? You're basically just the wallet in this family. You always have been. Behind him, Chloe let out a little laugh, a short, sharp sound that cut right through me. She tried to cover it with a cough, but it was too late. I saw it in her eyes, the same dismissal, the same sense of entitlement. They didn't see me as a sister or a friend or even a person. I was a resource, an account balance, a wallet. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The hurt, the anger, the years of feeling secondary, it all vanished, replaced by a sudden, shocking clarity. It was like a switch being flipped in a dark room. I looked at my brother's smug face and his fiancée's mocking smile, and I felt nothing but a cold, calm certainty. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, I didn't give them the drama they so clearly expected. Instead, a small smile touched my own lips. I looked past them toward the window as if checking the sky. Well, I said, my voice even in light, good luck with the weather. I turned and walked away without another word, leaving them standing in the doorway, their champagne glasses frozen midair, a look of utter confusion on their faces. They had no idea what I meant, but they would. The drive home was strangely peaceful. The storm wasn't outside my car, it had been raging inside me for years, and now it was finally over. The confrontation hadn't been a fiery explosion, but a quiet final click. It was the sound of a door locking for good. The hurt was still there, a deep foundational ache, but it was now overlaid with something new, a diamond-hard resolve. They had given me my new identity, the family wallet, and a wallet can be closed. I walked into my apartment, the silence a welcome comfort. I didn't pace or panic. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and got to work. My revenge wouldn't be loud or hysterical. It would be methodical, efficient, and utterly devastating. It would be executed with the same cool logic I applied to my job every single day. My first call was back to my credit card company. I got a different agent this time, a woman named Brenda who sounded kind and patient. I didn't report the card as stolen this time. I was more precise. Hello, Brenda, I began, my voice calm and firm. I'm calling about several large, unauthorized charges on my account. A few weeks ago, I gave my brother permission to use my card for a single, specific transaction, a $500 deposit for a music vendor. I explicitly told him that was the only approved charge. He then used that information to make over $24,000 in additional purchases for his wedding without my consent. I need to dispute every charge except for the original $500 I authorized. I could hear her typing, so you're saying the authorization was limited. Severely limited and verbally documented, I confirmed. Anything beyond the $500 charged to the band is fraudulent. Brenda understood. This was a different category now. Not a family misunderstanding, but a clear case of someone exceeding explicit permission. A financial breach of trust. She immediately initiated a chargeback for the $14,550 from Premier Event Rentals, the $8,200 from Artisan Catering, and the $1,300 from Blooms and Bouquets. The funds will be provisionally credited back to your account within 24 hours while we investigate, she explained. The vendors will be notified that the payment has been disputed and reversed. I felt a weight lift from my chest. Next on my list, the vendors themselves. I wanted to make sure the cancellations were swift and irreversible. I found the number for Premier Event Rentals first. A man with a gruff voice answered. Premier Events, how can I help you? Hello, I said politely. I'm calling about an order for the Miller wedding this Saturday at Oak Creek. My name is Hannah Miller. Ah, yes, the big one, he said. The tent, the deluxe chairs, the whole package. What can I do for you? I'm the card holder whose card was used for the payment, I explained. Unfortunately, the charge was unauthorized. I have just initiated a chargeback with my bank. I am formally notifying you that the payment has been reversed and you need to cancel the order. There was a stunned silence. Cancel, ma'am, the wedding is in 3 days. The tent is already on the truck, ready for setup tomorrow morning. I understand the timing is difficult, I said, my voice betraying no emotion. However, you accepted a payment that was not authorized by the cardholder. I suggest you contact Leo Miller or Chloe Banks for a valid form of payment if you still intend to provide the service. As of this moment, my involvement is over. He started to bluster, talking about contracts and policies, but I held firm. Your contract is with the person who signed it, Leo Miller. Your financial transaction was with me and it was fraudulent. The chargeback is already in process. You will not be getting paid from my account. I heard him sputtering as I politely ended the call. One down, two to go. The call with the caterer was much the same. A woman pleaded with me, talking about the fresh ingredients already ordered, the salmon, the filet mignon. We've already spent thousands preparing for this event, she lamented. I am truly sorry that my brother put you in this position, I said, and I meant it. He deceived you as much as he deceived me, but I cannot be financially responsible for his actions. The chargeback has been filed. You need to speak with him directly. The florist was the easiest. The flowers hadn't been delivered yet. The cancellation was processed with a frustrated sigh, but it was processed, 3 down. Then I took a deep breath and made the final call. The band. This was the one charge I had actually authorized. This was my original, genuine gift. I found their number and dialed. Hello, Starfall Entertainment, a cheerful voice answered. Hello, I said. My name is Hannah Miller. I placed a $500 deposit for the Miller wedding this Saturday. Yes, of course, we're so excited to play for them. I'm calling to cancel, I said flatly. The cheerfulness vanished. Oh, is there a problem? Yes, I said. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I am withdrawing my gift. I am forfeiting the $500 deposit. You can keep it for the inconvenience, but you will not be playing at that wedding on my dime. After I hung up the phone, I sat in the quiet of my apartment. A wave of something powerful washed over me. It wasn't glee or malice, it was empowerment. For my entire life, I had been the shock absorber for my family's irresponsibility. I had quietly paid, quietly given, quietly endured. I had absorbed the financial and emotional cost of my brother's choices and my parents' favoritism without complaint. Tonight, for the first time, I had refused. I had rerouted the consequences back to their rightful owners. I turned off my computer, turned off the lights, and went to bed. For the first time in as long as I could remember, my mind was quiet. I slept soundly with no dreams. The next morning, Wednesday, was beautifully silent. The wedding was in 2 days. I woke up feeling rested and clear-headed. I checked my banking app. Just as Brenda had promised, the provisional credits were there. The staggering negative balance was gone, replaced by the familiar comfort of my own hard-earned money, safe and sound. A small, genuine smile touched my lips. I had expected an immediate storm of angry calls, but my phone remained quiet. It was unnerving at first. It was the calm before the hurricane, and I knew it. They hadn't realized yet. Leo and Chloe were likely basking in the glow of their finalized plans, completely unaware that the foundation of their perfect day had been systematically dismantled. I took a personal day from work. I couldn't have focused anyway. Instead, I went for a long walk in the park, bought myself a fancy coffee, and read a book on a bench in the sun. It was a day purely for me, an act of reclaiming my own peace. The silence from my family continued through the afternoon, and with each passing hour, my resolve hardened. The first tremor hit around 4 p.m. It was a call from my mother. I let it ring for a moment, took a deep breath, and answered, keeping my voice neutral and light. Hi, Mom. Hannah, honey, a strange thing just happened, she began, her voice laced with confusion, not anger. The caterer just called me, a very upset woman. She said something about the payment for the wedding being declined and that they needed a new credit card immediately or they were canceling the order. Did you get a new card recently? Maybe you gave Leo the wrong number. I feigned ignorance. Oh, that is strange, I said. No, I haven't changed my card, but I did have to report some fraudulent activity on my account yesterday. A whole series of charges I didn't make. The bank is handling it all. There was a pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, not quite connecting the dots. Fraudulent activity? Oh dear. Well, I hope it gets sorted out. I'll just tell Leo to call the caterer and sort it out himself. He's probably just mixed something up. I'm sure he'll figure it out, I said calmly. Anyway, I have to go, Mom. Talk to you later. I hung up before she could ask any more questions. Phase 1 of the fallout was complete. The seed of chaos had been planted. Now I just had to wait for it to sprout. I didn't have to wait long. An hour later, my phone screen lit up with Leo's name. I silenced the call and set my phone face down on the table. A second later, a text message. ZHANNAH calling me now. Then another, the caterer just canceled, what did you do? And another, the tent company too, pick up the phone. The texts grew more frantic, littered with typos and exclamation points. Then Chloe started, Hannah, you have to fix this. This is my wedding day. You can't do this to us. I read each message with a detached sense of vindication, then deleted them one by one. I was no longer a participant in their drama. I was merely an observer. The final call of the evening came from my father. His name on the screen made my stomach tighten, but I knew I had to face this. I answered. I didn't even have a chance to say hello. Hannah, what on earth have you done? He boomed, his voice radiating fury. Your mother told me what you said. You've canceled everything. You're ruining your brother's wedding. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. The accusation, so deeply unfair, snapped the last thread of my familial obligation. Everything you've done for me? I asked, my voice dangerously cold. What exactly would that be? Did you pay for my car, my college tuition, my apartment? No, I did all of that on my own while you were funding Leo's entire life and asking me to chip in. He was sputtering, taken aback by my tone. That's not the point. This is about your brother. He's your family. He is, I agreed. And my family told me my role. I went to see Leo and Chloe yesterday, Dad. I asked them about the charges. Do you know what your son said to me? He said, you're basically just the wallet in this family. Don't act surprised. And his fiancée laughed in my face. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone. I let the words hang in the air, heavy and sharp. So I did what any person would do when their wallet is stolen. I continued, my voice low and steady. I canceled the card. Wallets can be closed, Dad. The consequences of that are not my problem. They are Leo's. You can't be serious, he stammered, his anger deflating into disbelief. You're going to destroy this family over some money. No, I corrected him. You are all going to watch this family be destroyed over your sense of entitlement and your profound lack of respect. There's a difference. I ended the call, my hands steady. The hurricane had made landfalls. Thursday night, less than 48 hours before the scheduled wedding, my doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. The united front of my family's disappointment had arrived. I saw Leo, his face blotchy and furious, Chloe, her makeup streaked with what I presumed were tears, my mother looking distraught, and my father, his expression a thundercloud of righteous anger. For a moment, I considered not opening the door. I could just let them stand there, let them exhaust themselves shouting at a piece of wood. But that felt like hiding. I had made my decision. I had to own it. I took a breath, turned the deadbolt, and opened the door. We need to talk, my father said, his voice a low growl as he pushed past me into my living room. The others followed like a tide of misery and accusation. I closed the door calmly and turned to face them. There's nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about, Leo exploded, his voice cracking. You destroyed my wedding. Everything is gone. The caterer, the tent, the flowers, the band, everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done, I replied, my voice even. I stopped payment on a series of fraudulent charges. And it wasn't fraud, it was for my wedding, he yelled. Chloe stepped forward, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Hannah, please, she sobbed, though the tears seemed manufactured for effect. This was supposed to be the most important day of my life, my dream wedding. How could you be so cruel? Your dream wedding, I repeated, looking her directly in the eye, was being built on my life savings. You didn't find that cruel. My mother rushed to Chloe's side, putting a comforting arm around her. Hannah, this has gone far enough, she pleaded. You've made your point, now you have to fix it, call them back, give them your card number, we can still save this. There it was, not an apology, not an ounce of remorse, just a demand. A demand that I, the wronged party, be the one to repair the damage they had caused. No, I said, the word was quiet, but it filled the room. What do you mean, no? My father demanded. I mean, no, I will not be calling anyone, I will not be paying for anything. This situation is a direct result of your actions, not mine. I walked over to my desk and picked up a small notebook. I had spent the afternoon preparing for this. You know, for years, I've wondered if I was imagining things, if I was just being overly sensitive. So today, I did some math. I flipped open the notebook. When I was 17, I started paying for Leo's car insurance at $150 a month for 2 years. That comes out to $3,600. During his 4 years at art school, I sent him what I called support money, which averaged about $400 a month. That comes to $19,200. Then there were the loans. The $800 for a new laptop, the $500 to cover his rent that one time, the $1,200 for a security deposit on this apartment, none of which was ever paid back. That's another $2,500. Before your wedding, Leo, I had already single-handedly given you over $25,000. And that doesn't even count the initial $5,000 gift I gave you for this wedding. I looked up from my notebook, my gaze sweeping over their stunned faces. So when you took another $24,000 without my permission, I said, my voice shaking with restrained emotion, you weren't just taking money, you were taking my work, my sacrifices, my future, and you didn't even have the decency to ask. I turned to Leo. You looked me in the eye and called me a wallet, a thing, an object to be used. You didn't see a sister who has supported you your entire adult life. You saw an open purse. I turned to Chloe, and you laughed. You laughed at the idea that I might have feelings, that my money was something I had earned, not something that magically appeared for your convenience. You stood by your future husband as he belittled the one person who has consistently helped him. Your dream wedding doesn't give you a pass on basic human decency. Finally, I looked at my parents. And you too, I said, my voice dropping. You are the architects of this, you built this dynamic, you taught him that his wants were more important than my needs. You taught him that my success wasn't for me, but for him. You praised me for being responsible so you wouldn't have to be responsible for him. You have never, not once, stood up for me or acknowledged the imbalance. You are just as much to blame as they are. Chloe let out a strangled sob, but it's my wedding, she wailed. Then you should have paid for it, I said, my voice flat. My father took a step toward me, his face purple with rage. You will fix this, Hannah. You are still a part of this family. No, I said, holding up a hand. I am not this family, not anymore. I walked to my front door and opened it. I want you all to leave my homes now. They just stared at me aghast. We're not going anywhere until you agree to fix this, Leo said stubbornly. Fine, I said. I pulled out my phone. If you are not out of my apartment in 30 seconds, I will be calling the police and having you removed for trespassing. That finally did it. The threat of public humiliation, of involving outsiders in their perfect family drama, was more than they could bear. My father shot me a look of pure hatred, then turned and stalked out the door. My mother, crying openly now, followed him. Chloe gave me one last tearful, accusatory glare before Leo grabbed her arm and pulled her out into the hallway. He was the last to leave. He stood in the doorway for a second, his face a mixture of fury and shock, as if he still couldn't comprehend that his personal ATM had been permanently closed. I shut the door, locked the deadbolt, and leaned against it, the adrenaline finally leaving my body, replaced by a profound, shaking sense of release. The day of the wedding arrived, a bright, beautiful Saturday. The kind of day that Chloe had probably dreamed of for her perfect outdoor ceremony. I did not go. In the morning, I had methodically gone through my phone and blocked their numbers, Mom, Dad, Leo, Chloe. I blocked them on social media. I erected a digital wall around myself, creating a space of quiet that I hadn't realized I so desperately needed. I spent the day reclaiming my life. I went on a long, strenuous hike, feeling the burn in my legs and the sun on my face. Every step felt like I was walking away from the person I used to be, the dutiful daughter, the ever-giving sister. After the hike, I treated myself to a massage, letting a stranger work the knots of tension out of my shoulders, knots that had been tied there by years of family expectations. It was a day of profound, unapologetic selfishness, and it was glorious. I didn't have to wait long to hear about the wedding. My cousin, Sarah, had always been more of a friend than a relative. She saw the family dynamic for what it was and had called me a few days prior to offer her support, telling me she was proud of me. She went to the wedding out of a sense of obligation but promised to give me a full report. She called me that evening. "You are not going to believe this," she said, and I could hear the mixture of horror and morbid fascination in her voice. "It was a catastrophe, Hannah, a full-blown, unmitigated disaster." Sarah described the scene. The guests arrived at the beautiful Oak Creek venue to find nothing, no grand tent, no elegant chairs, just an open field. People stood around awkwardly on the grass in their fancy shoes and formal wear. There was no florist's touch, no beautiful bouquets or arrangements, just the wild, untamed nature of the park. The ceremony started late, and without a band to play the processional, Chloe had to walk down the aisle to the tinny sound of a song playing from someone's phone. According to Sarah, Chloe was visibly crying not tears of joy, but of pure rage and humiliation from the moment she appeared. The real disaster struck after the short, tense ceremony. With no caterer, Leo and my father had apparently made a frantic, last-minute call to 3 different pizza places. An hour later, delivery cars started showing up and guests were handed greasy cardboard boxes. People were eating pepperoni pizza in $1,000 dresses, Sarah recounted, barely stifling a laugh. There was nothing to drink but the warm bottled water they'd bought at a gas station on the way. And then came my final parting gift. "You mentioned the weather," Sarah said. "Hannah, it was like you were a psychic. The sky just opened up. It started with a drizzle and then it was a downpour. With no tent, everyone just scattered. People were running to their cars, getting soaked. The whole thing was over in less than 2 hours. It wasn't a wedding, it was a washout." I felt a strange mix of emotions listening to her. There was no joy, no triumphant "I told you so." There was just a sad, quiet sense of finality. This was the natural consequence of their choices. I hadn't created the storm, I had simply refused to provide them with shelter from it. A few weeks passed in blissful silence. Then an email appeared in my inbox. The sender was my mother, the subject line was "Our family." I hesitated before opening it, bracing myself for another wave of guilt and blame. It was exactly that, but couched in the language of reconciliation. She wrote of her heartbreak, of how torn apart the family was, of how Leo and Chloe were still so devastated. She ended the email with a familiar refrain. "I know you're still hurt, Hannah, but someone has to be the bigger person and start the healing process. We need you to reach out to your brother." I read the email twice, then took a deep breath and began to type my reply. My fingers moved with a certainty I'd never felt before when communicating with them. "Mom, thank you for your email. You are right that the family is broken. However, you are mistaken about the cause. The family is not broken because I canceled payment for a wedding. It is broken because you, Dad, and Leo have spent 30 years treating me like a utility rather than a person. It is broken because my value in this family has always been tied to my bank account. You asked me to be the bigger person. For my entire life, being the bigger person has meant silently accepting disrespect, funding irresponsibility, and swallowing my own needs. I will no longer be playing that role. Healing cannot begin until the people who caused the wound take responsibility for it. Therefore, here are my terms for any potential reconciliation in the future. 1. Leo must repay me in full for the $25,300 he has taken from me over the years, not including the wedding gift. A formal payment plan can be arranged. 2. I require separate, sincere, and individual apologies from you, Dad, Leo, and Chloe. Not apologies for how I feel, but apologies for what you did. Acknowledgement of the years of financial and emotional neglect is non-negotiable. Until these two conditions are met, there is nothing to discuss. The ball is in your court. Hannah. I hit send. I knew it was an ultimatum they would likely never meet. Repayment and genuine remorse were foreign concepts in their world, but it didn't matter. I wasn't setting the terms for them, I was setting them for me. I was defining the price of my own peace and self-respect. The resolution wasn't about bringing my family back together, it was about liberating myself finally and completely. Months have passed since the day of the disastrous wedding. The silence from my family has been almost absolute, broken only by the echo of my final email to which I never received a reply. The wall I built has held strong, and behind it, my life has begun to flourish in ways I never imagined. The constant low-grade anxiety that used to be my permanent companion has vanished. My finances, now solely my own, are healthier than ever. I'm saving for a trip to Japan, a dream I had always put on the back burner because someone else always needed something first. I have leaned into my friendships and have been surprised by the depth of support I've received. My cousin Sarah and I have grown closer, bonding over our shared experiences with the family's toxic dynamics. I've started dating someone new, a kind and stable man who celebrates my success as my own and whose definition of partnership is based on mutual respect, not mutual benefit. For the first time, I feel like I'm building a life on solid ground, a foundation I laid myself with materials I chose. There is a sadness, of course. It comes in quiet moments, seeing a family laugh together in a restaurant or hearing a song that reminds me of a childhood memory before it all became so transactional. It's the grief for the family I wish I had, the brother I wish I could have trusted. It's the mourning of a relationship that was, perhaps, never real to begin with. But the grief is a quiet ache now, not the sharp, open wound it once was. The relief of my freedom far outweighs the pain of my loss. 2 weeks ago, I received one final communication. It was a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Leo," it read. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time, 3 words, after a lifetime of taking 3 words. There was no mention of the money, no acknowledgement of the cruelty, no real substance. It was the smallest, easiest offering he could make. It was a pebble of an apology for a mountain of wrongdoing. The old Hannah, the one who was desperate for any scrap of affection, would have seized it. She would have replied instantly, opened the door a crack, and allowed the cycle to begin anew. But I am not the old Hannah. I read the message, felt a flicker of the old sadness, and then I deleted it without a reply. It was too little, far too late. Trust, once shattered so completely, cannot be rebuilt with 3 words. My life is my own now. I have learned that family is not just about blood, it's about who respects you, who supports you, and who values you as a whole person, not just for the parts of you they can use. I had to lose the family I was born into to finally be free to build the one I deserve. So I have to ask you, the listeners, what would you have done? Was I wrong to protect myself, to finally draw a line in the sand after years of being walked all over? Or was this the only way to end a cycle of disrespect that had defined my entire life? I've made my peace with my choice, but I'm curious to know what others think. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories. We are all human, navigating complex relationships and difficult choices. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with someone who might appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon.